was amazed to find such poignant moments involving George Washington and New York.
Oh, there are several. My favorite, personally, is you have the reading of the Declaration of Independence while stationed in New York. You also have the goodbye moments. When the British, towards the end of the war, there's some scary moments when the American officers know that peace is coming. And just up the Hudson in Newburgh, New York, not far from West Point, the Army was encamped to keep watch on the British who were still occupying New York before a peace treaty came out. And there were rumblings that the officers hadn't been paid. They'd been promised half pay for life, a pension, and Congress hadn't paid them. And they were afraid that if the war were to end, Congress may never pay them. So a mysterious secret letter circulates among some of the officers. And Washington catches wind of it. He calls his own meeting to say, I'm in charge here. And he appeals to them. And it's something called the Newburgh Conspiracy. And it's maybe a coup against Congress. Maybe the Army would retreat behind the mountains, let the British march out and do what they will until the Congress paid them. And what's interesting is Washington calls this meeting and he appeals to them based on this concept of honor. He says, look what we've done in this war. Look what we've proven. Look what we've sacrificed. Don't give it up now. And he appeals to them on this notion of sacred honor, the same term used by the First Continental Congress and in the Declaration of Independence, this idea of moral duty, of ethical conduct for the service of the nation. And this is the moment that really shows that this would not be like other revolutions or other wars. We have a military dictator take over, like the English Civil War, or even like Julius Caesar. And the Army preserves its honor and preserves its place, the idea of civilian supremacy. But it's really in Manhattan at Fraunces Tavern, not far from modern-day Wall Street, where Washington has his most intimate moment. You could argue maybe one of the most intimate moments of his life. At Fraunces Tavern, in the second floor, he has a private meeting with his officers. And he says goodbye, and it becomes this tearful moment where he is so overcome that he's visibly shaken. Tears are in his eyes, and he says, I cannot come to you. Come to me. And they embrace. And Washington, a man who views himself in many ways as a sort of classical stoic, reserved, hugging officers, kisses shared, the first to approach Henry Knox, who was a bookseller, became general of the artillery. And it's this moment where he says goodbye personally to 30 to 40 of his officers. And it's something that shows the personal side of Washington, but also that he is willing to give up power for the nation's honor because he feels that's what's best. That's what's most important for the preservation of liberty and the ideals of the revolution, not that he stays in power.
It's really remarkable as you continue to research Washington and the American Revolution, and I know so much of your book is about American honor, even over a tax on tea. Many people learn in history class that that's what the revolution was over.
Oh.
But you think a bit differently about that.
Yes. So I was formerly a high school history teacher, in fact, in Queens, New York. I'm from Queens. And the great answer that everyone gives and everyone knows, no taxation without representation. So whether it's a stamp tax.
Of course, that's what we all
learned.
Well,
of course. And it's not wrong. There's just some more nuance there. And the nuance I'm speaking of is this idea of honor, this idea of ethical behavior, and the feeling that in taxing the Americans, in stationing troops and firing on them at Lexington and Concord, or restricting liberty, not giving them a voice in government. They were treating them as lesser individuals. They were behaving unethically. They weren't fulfilling their duties as a government. And that's what gives the right. And Americans viewed themselves as acting more honorable than the British. So you can look at the original documents and you'll see taxation, you'll see representation. But before they talk about that, they talk about honor and they tie it with liberty and freedom and independence. So these ideas exist at the same time as the others, but these are the ones that are advanced forward. And it's difficult sometimes for the modern ear to pick this up because we don't go around using the word honor much anymore. And that's because in the 21st century, you can actually chart the usage of the word. It actually changes. So what we call ethical is what early Americans would have called honorable.